Hey guys, it's Maymay, and today we are reviewing this Cricut trimmer. Now, I showed this in a recent video and showed you guys that I was using it now and said that I really loved it and wanted to show you guys about it. And so many of you said, yes, please do a review. So that's what we're doing today. Now, this is the white Cricut trimmer, and this one came to me from Cricut. They sent me this for my classroom at my cottage. However, it is available online at Cricut.com and it retails full price for only $14.99 as of today. I just looked this morning. But there are always coupons to get these guys cheaper over on Cricut. And so what I'm going to do is in the description below, I'm going to put a link and any coupon codes I can find for you guys that are active as of today. And then that way you can go grab one if you want it. Now, here's the deal. I am a fan of a rotary cutter, and if you have followed me for any length of time, you will know that I had a trimmer like this that had this little push blade, and I was not a fan of it, and I never use it anymore, and I have moved to a rotary blade. So when this one came in, I kind of thought, I'm not going to like this one. It's going to be like all the others. And I'll tell you why I used it. I was in the classroom and I was working on some prototypes for my Santa purses, and I didn't have my trimmer handy, but this was sitting on the counter, and I'm like, okay, I'll just use this. I'm just making a prototype. Boy, was I amazed. I was like, holy cow, this guy cuts really well. And there's several things about it I want to point out to you. Number one is this. I love the size that it is for storage. See how compact it is? It's very thin. It doesn't take up a whole lot of room. And if you're like me and you have a rotary cutter, you know that that rotary is kind of bulky. This one's really flat, so it's easy to store. The other thing I like is this swing arm goes all the way to 15 inches, which is really cool because if you're a vinyl designer, if you use vinyl in your Cricut or what have you, having this longer cut area is so nice because sometimes we need bigger pieces for our 12 by 24 mats, and this is a good idea. I love it. Another cool thing about it, and I'm going to zoom you in for some of this stuff. So some other really cool things about it are this. It measures in inches on the top row, but it measures in centimeters on the bottom. So our UK friends, anyone that measures in centimeters, I think they do in Canada as well, I'm not sure, but this will work for everybody, inches or centimeters, which I think is awesome. Now, one of the things I really love about this trimmer is this cut bed, and here's the reason. Cricut laid it out to where it ends at 4 inches. It ends on an even number and it's at 4, which makes it super easy for card makers because a lot of times you use that 4-inch mark for your mat on your card, and that is perfect. You guys know that I have some trimmers in my stash where the arm comes out, and all these measurements we use all the time as card makers kind of get lost in that bend. That does not happen with this one because it ends at 4 inches, and that's when the arm comes out. So even if you have this shut and you need to cut a 4-inch piece, you can know if you lay it right here to this edge that it will be 4 inches. Now, the other thing I love is that all of our other measurements for card makers are easily laid out for us. For example, if you need a 4 1/4 piece for an A2 size card, super easy to see. There is 5 1/4, there's 5 1/2, all clearly able for us to see. Now, I do have one little issue, but it's really not that bad, and once you start using it, you'll get used to it. I'm going to bring some red cardstock over and show you what I mean. I have caught myself many times lining up a piece of paper where the number is, and on this trimmer you can't do that. I want to point this out to you real quick. You see where that longer line is and the number 5 is beside the line? So for 5 inches, I need to cut here. You can see how clearly you can see that number 5 past it. It's just an eye thing because with my other trimmer, I've gotten used to the fact that where the number is where I cut. But for this one, you have to really pay attention because if you cut where that number is, you're actually cutting at 5 1/8 of an inch. So you want to make sure that you understand that the number is beside the line that it coincides with. You can really see that here where we've got the 3-inch mark, and you can see the 3 is clearly showing even though I have this lined up on the 3-inch mark. So you do have to pay attention to that. And I promise you when you get it, you're going to be like me and go, oh, that's not right. And you're going to have to change it a little bit. But you'll get used to that. Now for centimeter users, it's the same way. The line is first and then the number, okay? So you'll see, even though I'm going to cut 1 centimeter, I'm going to line it up where the 1 is still clearly noticeable, like the 2. You can see that. So you have to get used to that, but that's not a bad thing. It's just something you need to get used to. I also love that this guy is marked in 8s in sixteenths, in quarters, in halves, so it's very clearly marked, so you can get any cut you need. Now when you come past the blade, let me come out here and show you what I mean. I tend to cut out here sometimes, especially depending on the size of the paper I'm cutting, and you get 2 inches out here, which is pretty standard. So if you wanted to cut a 2-inch piece off of this guy, you could just lay it flush to the edge of the trimmer, and that would get you a 2-inch piece. I'm not gonna cut it just yet, we'll cut in a second. So you have plenty of room out here to get some smaller cuts as well. The cut line is pretty clear to see. One thing I really like is this, and this may just be me and seem kind of picky, but let me show you anyway. Right past, I'm going to use a pointer, right past the paper, I can still see where the blade is going to live. And I like this because that means when I close this guy down, I can see where my cut line is going to go. Now, I don't have a wire or anything here to show me that, but that helps by having that piece stick out to let me know exactly where the cut is going to be. If that wasn't there, I kind of just have to guess where the blade was going to go. Now let's talk about the blade for a second. This is what I like to call a triangle blade, and I'm going to see if you can see it here. I'll bring it up to the side so you can see. I don't want to get cut. There's a little triangle blade that sticks out here, and it's very meaty. I'm going to close this arm down too. This is a very meaty arm. You might remember in some of my other reviews, I did not love these floppy plastic arms. Well, one thing I love that Cricut has done is they have made this thicker. Now, it's not perfect. It still moves. Let me zoom out so you can see that. Now, as you can see, it still wiggles and it still moves. However, it is thick enough and bulky enough that I feel like I get a pretty stable cut. Now, do I think I could wiggle it? Probably so. But it doesn't wiggle side to side as easy as some plastic arm cutters that I've had. Now, something you can do with this style of trimmer you can't do with a rotary cutter, I love this actually, is you can have measurement top and bottom. I'm going to show you that side by side really quick. With a rotary trimmer, you don't get a ruler here, and the reason is there's no way to make that clear on this cast aluminum arm, okay? Here we've got a ruler going to the top and bottom and a ruler going across. And you're thinking, why does that matter? I'll show you in 1 second. I also want to point out that you don't have a way to know exactly where your blade will start or stop with the rotary, but we can with this guy. So let's say, for example, you wanted to make a slice in this piece of paper 2 inches in and 3 inches down. And let me show you how you do it. You line your paper up at the 2-inch mark like I showed you earlier, okay? So I know here my blade will be 2 inches in on the paper, but I only want to cut down 3 inches. So I'm starting my blade at the top, and this housing or this blade carrier has these little notches in 4 places, and that lets you know exactly where your blade is underneath there. This 3-inch mark here is going to tell me how far I need to go down. So in order to do this slice into the page at a certain spot, I take my blade and I line up this edge. I can see it right here, this little line with my 3-inch line. And now I know when I lift this up, I've made a slice in the page 2 inches over and 3 inches down. Now, you're thinking, well, when does that matter for anything? You'd be surprised. Some of those sidestep cards, even some shaker cards where you need to cut the center out, some easel cards, that comes in really handy. I want to see if you can hear how sharp this guy is. Listen to this blade. Oh, also one thing I like to tell you, and I do this with all of my kind of push blade trimmers like this, I usually cut from the bottom up. I feel like I get a better straighter line that way. I never pull down. For me, when I pull down, I have a chance of sliding my paper down and getting a messy cut. But by pushing up, all the pressure is pushing the cardstock or the paper to that little stop line, and that for me works best. So listen to this guy. Do you hear how that razor blade cuts? It is just like butter, and it is a beautiful, smooth cut. I want you to see how smooth it is. I'm really, really happy with this guy. Can you tell? So that's that. Now, there's been some questions about changing out the blade and how often. I have a friend, you guys know my friend Gareth. He has one of these trimmers, and he let me know that he had to change his blade quicker than he normally had to. And I've had some other people tell me that these blades get a little duller faster. But to be honest with you, I found that with my other trimmers as well that had these kind of razor blade type trimmers. I usually had to change those blades much faster. Like my rotary blade, I've never changed it. But these guys I used to have to change out. And if you need to change it, it's pretty easy to do. Well, let me show you. There's no easy way to show you this, so I'm going to start by telling you and then I'm going to do it. So this little blade piece right here pops straight out of this housing, and once you lift this guy out, it will separate, and that's the part that you replace. So how I get mine is, you see this little flat spatula that I have, and you can do this with anything. I just put it in there to the side and just kind of pull forward on one end, and it usually comes, you see how that just kind of popped out? And I'm going to lift that up and show you what it looks like. That's the blade itself. So if you need to replace it, that's what you'll be replacing. Okay? Now, here is the carrier, or the little housing, and you can see how this looks, and that's where the blade sandwiches the arm. Now I want to show you something else that I think is really cool that Cricut has done. On the back, and I had somebody point this out to me because I didn't even know this was here, this is a storage for extra blades. There's actually 2 spots, one here and one here. So if you go ahead and purchase this guy and get your extra blades, you can store them on the cutter, which I love, because you know what I do? I'll buy extra blades, put them in a drawer somewhere, and forget where I put them, and when I need them, I don't have them. Now I want to show you how to place this into the storage. So to put this guy into its little housing, you just lay it at the top here and then drive it into that little blade and then pop it into place. Now once that's snapped into place, it is a firm hold, it is locked into place, and it's not going to fall out. So you might need something to help you get it out when it comes time to replace it, just to kind of pop it forward, and that's how I did it. Now, let's say you're going to replace your blade. You've seen how to take it off, now let's put it back on. Super easy. Take the little slider housing that's got this little edge, and you want to put that into the slider hole on the arm, and then take your blade and place it right into the little slot and press. So not hard to do, and it will only go so far, so you really, I don't think, let me try. Yeah, you can't squeeze it in too hard because it only goes so far, and that's how you replace the blade. Super easy. Now, I would be interested to see, depending on how you do your trimming, if you couldn't use this blade and then take it out and flip it out and use the other side. I would think that you could, especially if you're like me and you tend to cut in one direction all the time. If you cut in both directions all the time, that blade might wear on both sides at the same time, but for me, I probably could flip it around and use it. Now, I think this is a fantastic cutter for the price. I had some people tell me they got it for like $12 and some change, even with free shipping, because of the amazing coupon deals that they do on Cricut.com. And I'm very thankful they sent me this, because I have been very, like, not wanting these little push blade style trimmers for the longest time. But now that I've been able to use this guy, I really, really love it. And I hope you guys will let me know how you feel about it and tell me some tips and tricks you have for it. Lots of ways to use this in your stash. I don't think you'll be sorry if you get it. Do I think it is your long-term workhorse trimmer? I don't. Like, I'm glad I have this in my stash, but I think for cardstocks, for chipboards, for things like that, I probably would still lean to my rotary cutter, but that's really only because this blade is a little shallow for chipboards and things like that, so I would lean back to my rotary for that. Love this guy. I think he's well worth the money. Thanks to Cricut for sending it to me, and I'm sorry it took me so long to even try it, but I love it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.